up, guys? Welcome to another session with Mr. Abdul Wahab, and today we're going to be going through the fifth and the last text on the first practice exam from the College Board website. I cannot stress enough how important it is for each and every one of you to go over to that website, download all the practice exams. I think there's like 8 of them now. They're all available for free, and they are full practice exams. Make sure you go through each and every one of them. You will improve quite a lot if you practice with these exams. If you go on the Khan Academy website, you register for an account. You can do that for free, of course, and then you could practice some more, and you could really improve your skills so much and get so much higher grades on the actual SAT. And of course, if you go through these video tutorials, things are going to get easier and easier as you practice and practice, and you spend more and more time with the exam. You familiarize yourself with all the intricacies of the SAT, and sooner or later you're going to find yourself just, you're going to find that the whole SAT exam is a piece of cake. So let's take a look at this text. Okay, so passage 1 is adapted from the Michael Slezak Space Mining, The Next Gold Rush, 2013 by New Scientist. Passage 2 is from the editors of New Scientist, Taming the Final Frontier, 2013 by New Scientist. So those two passages are going to be quite interesting. They're about space mining, okay, and if it's the next gold rush. Now, if you aren't familiar with what the gold rush is, it was the time in the United States where lots of prospectors for gold were traveling there to discover some more and more gold and to make more and more money. And so it was a time of great wealth. And I'm guessing that the point of these two passages is to check and see if something similar is going to happen in outer space, if people are going to begin to go out there and begin discovering some new resources in outer space, and who knows. Okay, so let's take a look at those two texts. The second passage is called Taming the Final Frontier. So let's see what this is all about. So passage 1, follow the money and you will end up in space. That's the message from a first-of-its-kind forum on mining beyond Earth, convened in Sydney by the Australian Centre for Space Engineering Research. The event brought together mining companies, robotics experts, lunar scientists, and government agencies that are all working to make space mining a reality. So this is, of course, about space mining, and it is probably going to tell us about how some companies or some people are working to make sure that space mining does in fact become a reality. So the forum, okay, or the meeting, comes hot on the heels of the 2012 unveiling of two private asteroid mining firms. Okay, a firm is a company. So there are two asteroid mining firms which were unveiled in 2012. There's the Planetary Resources of Washington, and it says it will launch its first prospecting telescopes in 2 years, while Deep Space Industries of Virginia hopes to be harvesting metals from asteroids by 2020. Another commercial venture that sprung up in 2012, Golden Spike of Colorado, will be offering trips to the moon, including to potential lunar miners, those people who want to mine on the moon. So within a few decades, these firms may be meeting earthly demands for precious metals, such as platinum and gold, and rare earth metals, vital for personal electronics, such as yttrium and lanthanum. But like the gold rush pioneers who transformed the western United States, the first space miners won't just enrich themselves. They also hope to build an off-planet economy free of any bonds with Earth. So they want to start, in a sense, an entire market. Market in the abstract sense, okay? A free market, free of earthly bonds out there in outer space. So this could be quite interesting. They also hope to build an off-planet economy free of any bonds with Earth, in which the materials extracted and processed from the moon and asteroids are delivered for space-based projects. So whatever mining that they want to do in outer space, the reason why they want to do it is so that they could get the resources they need for space-based projects. So basically, they're not going to go out there, find rare precious metals in order for us to use them here on Earth, but for them to be reused in outer space, or at least that's the idea that I'm getting. In this scenario, water mined from other worlds could be the most desired commodity. So in the desert, what's worth more, a kilogram of gold or a kilogram of water? Asks Chris Zachney of Honeybee Robotics in New York. Gold is useless, of course. Honey will let you live. Water will let you live. So here the idea is that, in fact, okay, or exactly as we expected, whatever they're gonna mine in outer space, they're gonna use in outer space, and they're gonna mine the stuff that they need, of course. Okay, so if we get to a point in the future where we have space stations on the moon or on the moons of other planets or on some sort of celestial bodies out there, okay, if we do get to that point, we're gonna need water, and so we're gonna have to mine water from outer space. So this is what they're considering. Water ice from the moon's poles could be sent to astronauts on the International Space Station, for example, okay, for drinking or as a radiation shield. Splitting water into oxygen and hydrogen makes spacecraft fuel. So ice-rich asteroids could become interplanetary refueling stations. So we could do so many things with the water and the ice that we could find in outer space. Again, this is outer space mining for outer space reasons. Companies are eyeing, okay, they're taking a look. They are focusing on the iron, the silicon, and the aluminum in lunar soil and asteroids, which could be used in 3D printers to make spare parts or machinery. Others want to turn space dirt into concrete for landing pads, shelters, and roads. Again, I'm assuming that all of these uses are outer space uses. Okay, so now that was the first passage, which is space mining, the next gold rush. This introduced us into the idea of space mining. Now let's take a look, okay, at passage 2, which is supposed to talk about the taming of this whole issue, okay, putting these things within, I wouldn't say restrictions, but certain, I would expect, laws or regulations. So the motivation for deep sea travel is shifting from discovery to economics. So basically, focus has shifted from discovering outer space, getting to know outer space more, and now it is more focused on economics, how we could make money out of outer space. The past year has seen a flurry, okay, a huge amount of proposals aimed at bringing celestial riches down to Earth. No doubt this will make a few billionaires even wealthier, but we all stand to gain. The mineral bounty and spin-off technologies could enrich us all. So here, the author of this passage has begun by discussing the benefits, in fact, of outer space exploration. This could make a few billionaires even wealthier, but everybody stands to gain, as the author says, okay? The mineral bounty and the spin-off technologies could enrich us all. They could benefit us all. But before the miners start firing up the rockets, we should pause for thought. Very interesting sentence. So this person is, although he accepts the idea, of course, he doesn't reject it. He's telling us to pause for thought. Those are very important sentences and phrases that you should be extremely well aware of when you're going through the SAT. You should be able to catch these sentences. At first glance, space mining seems to sidestep most environmental concerns, okay? It doesn't put into focus the environmental concerns. It sidesteps them, okay? It goes over them. There is probably no life on asteroids and thus no habitats to trash or destroy. But its consequences, both here on Earth and in space, merit careful consideration. So again, here he's asking us to consider this very carefully, to think about it, not just to jump into actions quickly, okay? Part of this is about principles. So he's going to talk to us about the principles of the issue, perhaps maybe the ethics of it. So some will argue that space's magnificent desolation, okay, this whole enterprise of outer space bodies in the universe, the magnificence of it, the hugeness of it, is not ours to despoil. So some people would say, some will argue that outer space is not ours to go out there and despoil it, to take advantage of it, to ruin it. Just as they argue that our planet's poles, okay, should remain pristine. Pristine is clean, pure. Others will suggest that glutting ourselves, okay, glutting is basically being too hungry for something, okay, wanting so much for yourself. Glutting ourselves on space's riches is not an acceptable alternative to developing more sustainable ways of earthly life. So, although we might want to get our hands on outer space riches or outer space materials or metals, this shouldn't be an alternative. We shouldn't forget to develop, okay, more sustainable, better, okay, ways of earthly life. We should always be working on improving our lives here on Earth. History suggests that those will be hard lines to hold. This is going to be very difficult to maintain, of course. And it may be difficult to persuade, to convince the public that such barren environments, as the ones, of course, that we find in outer space, are worth preserving at all. Well, let's see why we're going to find it hard to persuade the public of this idea. After all, they exist in vast abundance. Okay, so here the author is saying we're going to have a very hard time maintaining our principles because it's going to be difficult convincing people to not despoil outer space, basically because there's so much outer space. I mean, we could spoil some part of it and there's just so much more. And even fewer people will experience them than have walked through Antarctica's icy landscapes. And basically, no matter, or at least should we begin to explore outer space, we're not going to have nations upon nations going out there, at least not at the beginning. It's only some people, and these numbers of people who will, at a certain point in time, go to outer space, their numbers are going to be so much less than the ones who have went to the poles, like Antarctica. There's also the emerging off-world economy, which was mentioned, by the way, in the previous passage. To consider, the resources that are valuable in orbit and beyond may be very different to those we prize on Earth. This is the question of value. So when you're in outer space, okay, again, this was a point made here about being in the desert. If you're in the desert, you're going to value water more than gold. You can't do anything with gold, but water will keep you alive. It's the same thing in outer space. Some things would be more valuable to you because you're in outer space, and so you will mine those stuff, while others will just be not as valuable. Okay, so the resources that are valuable in orbit, around the sun, of course, and beyond, may be very different to those we prize on Earth. Questions of their stewardship, their importance, have barely been broached. And the relevant legal, okay, so the important legal and regulatory framework is fragmentary, it's in pieces, which basically means we don't yet have legal or regulatory mandates or laws that would regulate or organize the whole outer space exploration and mining issue. Space miners, like their earthly counterparts, okay, so the miners in space, just like the ones on Earth, are often reluctant, hesitant to engage with such questions. One speaker at last week's Space Mining Forum in Sydney, Australia, concluded with a plea. Okay, he had a request to make that regulation should be avoided. So one speaker at that forum said that we shouldn't regulate, we shouldn't put laws, we shouldn't organize things. But miners have much to gain from a broad agreement on the for-profit exploitation of space. Without consensus, without agreement on how we as human beings should mine, if we can, mine outer space. So without consensus, claims will be disputed, okay, and investments will be risky. How can you make sure that whatever you mine in outer space is yours? How can you make sure that you could do whatever you like with it, okay, if it's not regulated? And the gains made insecure, of course, okay? So you're not sure of your gains. You're not sure if you do bring something from outer space that it's going to be viable for selling in the market. It is in all of our long-term interests, okay, to seek one out, to seek regulations and to seek an organizing body for this whole enterprise of outer space exploration. So this is the text, or two passages in one text, and they're very interesting, and I didn't find them quite hard or difficult to deal with. So in lines 9 to 17, the author of passage 1 mentions several companies, primarily two. So it was this passage, if you do remember, I highlighted the names of the companies. So in this paragraph, I'm going to read it again. The forum comes hot on the heels of 2012 unveiling of two private asteroid mining firms. Planetary Resources from Washington says it will launch its first prospecting telescopes in 2 years. Deep Sea Industries hopes to be harvesting metals from asteroids by 2020. Golden Spike from Colorado will be offering trips to the moon. So by reading this paragraph, we could safely conclude that the author of passage 1 is giving us examples of companies that are interested in outer space mining and exploration, and he's giving us those examples to tell us of what we're capable of doing, or what some companies are planning on doing once they do get out there. So let's take a look at the examples. Note the technological advances that make space mining possible. Well, he didn't talk much about the technological advances that make space mining possible. He said space mining is becoming more possible, but he didn't focus on the technological advances of the issue. Provide evidence of the growing interest in space mining. By giving us those examples that he did up there, right here, okay, by telling us about the companies, by telling us about what they're capable of, he is giving us some examples or evidence of how so many different people are becoming more and more interested in space mining. So I don't see how this answer could be wrong. So I'm going to put a slight tick right here. Emphasize the large profits to be made from space mining. He didn't discuss profits. Profits were not mentioned, okay? Businesses were mentioned. They will make profits, of course, but the focus, okay, of the examples that he gave weren't the large profits to be made from them. Highlight the diverse ways to carry out space mining operations, okay? So, did he, in that paragraph, okay, tell us about the diverse ways to carry out space mining operations? No, he told us about different things that we could do in outer space. Again, if you go back up there, okay, he told us about companies that are gonna launch telescopes for prospecting. Prospecting means we're gonna take a look at what's out there and try and find anything of value to be mined, okay? The second company hopes to harvest metals. Well, that's a form of mining, okay? And then the third company wants to offer trips to the moon, okay? So the examples given weren't to highlight the diverse ways to carry out space mining operations, just telling us the different things that these companies are planning on doing. So B is in fact the best answer for this question. Now, the author of passage 1 indicates that space mining could have which positive effect? Okay, there's a positive effect from space mining. Which one is it? It could yield materials important to Earth's economy. Well, yes, that's one point. It could raise the value of some precious metals on Earth. Nothing of the sort was mentioned. The text spoke about value, but only in the sense that when you're out there mining in outer space, whatever you want in outer space is, or whatever you might need while in outer space, could be of much more value than to what we might need here on Earth. It could create unanticipated technological innovations. He did speak about that. He did mention that technological innovations would follow, but that wasn't the positive effect he focused on. It was actually much more focused on in the second passage. If you go back here, okay, we all stand to gain. The mineral bounty and spin-off technologies could enrich us all. This was one point mentioned in passage 2, not so much focused on in passage 1. Though again, he did mention some technological innovations like the telescopes that they are planning on sending out for prospecting, but that wasn't his the primary positive effect that he used as evidence. It could change scientists' understanding of space resources. Again, that wasn't a point he talked about at all, the change in the understanding of space resources for scientists. That wasn't what he spoke about. But he did speak about yielding materials important to Earth's economy. Okay, when he spoke, for example, I think it was in this, there you go. So, within few decades, these firms may be meeting earthly demands for precious metals, such as platinum, gold, rare earth metals, vital for personal electronics, such as yttrium and lanthanum. So we can be very sure that this is the correct answer. So which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? They were probably the lines we just read. They are the ones that talk about the lanthanum, the benefits that we stand to gain. So that's definitely A. I'm not going to even waste time going through those. As used in line 19, demands most nearly means, let's go back to line 19, okay? So meeting earthly demands, okay? Of course, your demands would most probably not mean offers, not mean claims. They are not claims on something or inquiries. They are desires. They are wants, needs. Our wants and needs and demands in outer space, or basically on Earth, our demand of materials from outer space. So going back up here, what function does the discussion of water in lines 35 to 40 serve in passage 1? Okay, what function does this discussion serve? Okay, what does it do to help progress the ideas in the passage? So again, 35 to 40, water ice from the moon's poles could be sent to astronauts on the International Space Station for drinking as a radiation shield. Splitting water into oxygen and hydrogen makes spacecraft fuel, so ice-rich asteroids could become interplanetary refueling stations. So here they're trying to tell us about what benefits we could reap from mining water from outer space and then using it again in outer space. Okay, so that was a discussion about water in this paragraph, lines 35 to 40. So what does discussion serve? Let's take a look at the examples. So it continues an extended comparison that begins in the previous paragraph. So we have to go back to the previous paragraph and know if it serves this function. Okay. Now, even before I go back up there, it continues an extended comparison. We didn't see a comparison in these lines. Okay. However, if we go back up here, there was a comparison between what's worth more, a kilogram of gold or a kilogram of water if you're in the desert. And this comparison ended here. It was answered right in the same paragraph, so it didn't continue on to the next paragraph. This didn't happen, so we could safely say that A is not the right answer. It provides an unexpected answer to a question raised in the previous paragraph. Did it provide an unexpected answer to a question raised in the previous paragraph? Now, and again, the only question asked in the previous paragraph was also answered in the previous paragraph. So again, B most certainly is a wrong answer. It offers hypothetical examples. I'm liking this, okay? I might dislike it by the end of the sentence. So it offers hypothetical examples supporting a claim made in the previous paragraph. Well, yes, it did give us some hypothetical examples, some of the hypothetical uses of water should it be mined from outer space. So this seems like a very good answer. Let's take a look at D. Let's see if it's a better answer. It examines possible outcomes of a proposal put forth in the previous paragraph. Lines 35 to 40 did not provide outcomes or results of a proposal made in the previous paragraph. It gave us examples supporting a claim made in the previous paragraph, which is basically how water could be of so much value should it be mined in outer space. So we can safely, okay, cancel D, and the answer is C. Now, the central claim of passage 2 is that space mining has positive potential, but, okay, so this is important. This is very important. So it has positive potential, but it will end up encouraging humanity's reckless treatment of the environment. Now, the author of Passage 2, if I remember correctly, he said that these expeditions, okay, that they are sidestepping, okay, most environmental concerns. There is probably no life on asteroids and thus no habitats to trash. So he did speak about the environment, but only on outer space environment, okay, not about earthly environment, okay. So it will end up encouraging humanity's reckless treatment of the environment. Not exactly, okay. He didn't say that this is gonna encourage humanity's reckless treatment. He said it might come as a side effect of it, but not exactly encouraging people to do that, okay. um, its effects should be thoughtfully considered before it becomes a reality. Now, he did speak about this quite a lot. He said we should pause for thought. We should consider this more carefully. I do remember he spoke about this. Such potential may not include replenishing key resources that are disappearing on Earth. Now, he didn't mention, okay, that there are certain resources disappearing on Earth and that we should go to outer space to get them. That wasn't the point. The same point was made actually in both passages, that whatever we mine in outer space could be of better use in outer space. So again, this isn't a correct point at all. Experts agree about the commercial viability of the discoveries it could yield, okay? He didn't mention such disagreement about the commercial viability of the discoveries it could lead, okay? Whatever we discover in outer space, now, yes, of course, you could sell it on Earth, but it's gonna be sold for actually much higher prices because it is so much costly to do that outer space mining. That's one thought. The other thought is that he didn't focus so much about a disagreement among experts about commercial viability of whatever we managed sealed out there. That wasn't a focus. That wasn't something that he stressed on, but he did stress on carefully considering every step that we are ought to take before we do get to outer space. Now, as used in line 68, hold most nearly means. Let's go back to line 68, and here's hold. History suggests that those will be hard lines to hold, okay? The principles that he spoke about, the ideas that he shared with us in the previous paragraph right here. So those will be difficult lines to hold, okay? Well, does he mean to grip? Is he talking about actual lines that we should grip? Not really. Does it mean to restrain or to put limits on something? Again, not exactly. Withstand, oppose? Not really. So they will be hard lines to maintain, to keep, to uphold. So that's the closest meaning that I could think of for hold. Oh, in line 68. Now, which statement best describes the relationship between the passages? So we've read both passages, we've answered questions on both passages. So now we are trying to see what relationship is there between them. Passage 2 refutes the central claim advanced in Passage 1. There were no refutations. Let's make that clear, okay? Nobody refuted anyone. Passage 2 illustrates the phenomena described in more general terms in Passage 1. Again, not exactly. Passage 2 did not illustrate a phenomenon described in more general terms in Passage 1. If Passage 2 did anything, let's try to answer this ourselves before we take a look at the examples. Passage 2 does not have a problem with space mining, okay? They aren't against it. The only thing that I remember they said is that there should be a regulation. We should stop and think and consider this carefully. We should consider the positive effects, the advantages, the disadvantages. We should make sure we have regulatory laws, regulations on how this should be done to make sure that whatever we yield from outer space is sellable, is viable for selling on Earth, or is viable for use out there. So that was one point that Passage 2 made quite clearly. So it's not B. Passage 2 argues against the practicality of the proposals put forth in Passage 1. Again, it didn't do this. If anything, just said we should regulate. Passage 2 expresses reservations, concerns. A reservation is a concern about developments discussed in Passage 1. Definitely, that's definitely correct. Now, the author of Passage 2 would most likely respond to the discussion of the future of space mining in lines 18 to 28, Passage 1, by claiming that such a future is what? So let's go back to 18:28 just to remind ourselves of what this part of the text spoke about. So 18:28, it was in this part right here when they spoke about how these firms may be meeting earthly demands, getting us all the metals and the elements and the stuff that we need on Earth, whether it's platinum, gold, metals, yttrium, lanthanum. But like gold rush pioneers who transformed the western United States, the first space miners won't just enrich themselves, they also hope to build an off-planet economy free of any bonds with Earth, in which the materials extracted and processed from the moon and asteroids are delivered for space-based projects. This was the focus of the second half of these lines. So the author of Passage 2 would most likely respond to the discussion of the future of space mining in these lines by claiming that such a future is, let's take a look, inconsistent with the sustainable use of space resources. That wasn't a point made in Passage 2 at all. He didn't say it's inconsistent with the use of outer space resources. Will be difficult to bring about in the absence of regulations. Yes, definitely. This was mentioned in Passage 2. Cannot be attained without technologies that do not yet exist. He didn't speak about technologies that do not yet exist. That wasn't mentioned in Passage 2. Seems certain to affect Earth's economy in a negative way. Again, that wasn't a point he made. Now, which choice provides evidence for the answer to the previous question? Now, if I go back, and I do remember about reading those regulations right here. So one speaker at last week's Space Mining Forum in Sydney, Australia, concluded with a plea that regulation should be avoided. That's what the speaker said. But miners have much to gain from a broad agreement on the for-profit exploitation of space. Now, those are the thoughts of the writer. Whatever is mentioned here are the thoughts of the speaker at the forum. Without consensus, claims will be disputed, investments risky, and the gains made insecure. It is in all of our long-term interests to seek one out. So there should be consensus, and I do think it is those lines exactly. And I'm quite sure of it. You could go back through these lines and check them more. But as you practice the exam more and more, you begin to find ways to save time, and this is one of them for me. So which point about the resources that will be highly valued in space is implicit in Passage 1, implied, but it is explicit stated clearly in Passage 2. Which claim about resources, that will be highly valued is implied, you could conclude in Passage 1, but it is stated clearly in Passage 2. Let's take a look at the options. They may be different resources from those that are valuable on Earth. There was a point made, in fact, in both passages, The fact that if you're out there on space, when they gave the example with the water, if you are in outer space, certain materials might be much more valuable to you than whatever we might find valuable here on Earth. So I like A. They will be valuable only if they can be harvested cheaply. Of course, harvesting or mining in a cheap way is a good thing, but this wasn't a point discussed in either passage. How much we pay for mining wasn't discussed. Again, we might think it's a good idea, of course, to make more money or to save more money, but this wasn't a point made in either passage. They are likely to be primarily precious metals and rare earth elements, So did the passages imply or clearly state that whatever we're going to harvest out there is going to be precious metals and rare earth elements? Not really, because they did speak about mining for water, getting water, and this is neither a metal nor a rare earth element. They may increase in value as those same resources become rare on Earth. Well, again, this might be a logical conclusion, but was it a point made in either passage? No, this wasn't a point made in either passage. So the answer is definitely A. So this was the exam. This were the questions. I don't think this was a particularly difficult passage to deal with. I hope you'll benefit from this quite a lot. If you have any questions, please post them down in the comments section. Make sure you like this video if you do in fact like it. Share it with your friends and family. Let's try and get as many people benefiting from this as possible. Subscribe to our channel. Make sure you post your comments down there. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want, and we'll try as best as we can to provide you with all the resources that you need to ace your exams. Thank you for watching this, and see you soon on the next video. Bye.